Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Illinois Latino Legislative Latino Caucus Foundation Alumni Association, I want to welcome back Cafecito Careers in Government Part 2. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to welcome students, recent graduates, professionals, job seekers, and community members who are interested in learning more about opportunities within the Illinois state government. Today's conversation is about opening doors and helping attendees understand that public service is a career path where their skills, experiences, and perspectives can create meaningful impact. Our speakers will share their personal journeys, explain their roles, and provide practical guidance on how to explore opportunities throughout the state government. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping reminders. Please keep your microphones muted throughout today's webinar. Feel free to submit your questions using the Q&A feature throughout today's program. Lastly, we will have time for audience questions at the end of the conversation. We encourage you to stay engaged, take notes, and think about how your own experiences connect with the opportunities in public service. We hope today's conversation inspires you to see the government not only as a place to work, but as a place where you can lead, grow, and serve your community. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Elizabeth Villarreal. Elizabeth is a ILLCF alumna, former ILLCF scholarship recipient, and chair of the ILLCF Alumni Association Leadership and Development Committee. Elizabeth has been a strong advocate for leadership development, mentorship, and creating pathways of opportunity. Elizabeth, thank you for leading today's conversation.
Thank you, Jesus. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Cafecito Careers in Government Part 2. It is truly my pleasure to be with you all today. The Illinois Legislative Latino Caucus Foundation has always believed in the power of creating access to information, access to leaders, and access to opportunities. Today's conversation begins with a simple belief: government needs your voice. Many talented individuals have skills, passion, and commitment to serve their communities, but they may not always see government as a place where they belong. Maybe they think, I don't have the government experience. I don't know anyone in government. I'm not sure my background connects to public service. But today we want to challenge those assumptions because public service is built for people from many different backgrounds, peoples from nonprofits, education, business, technology, healthcare, community organizations, and many other fields. Your experience matters, your skills matter, your perspective matters. A career in government is not simply about a job title, it is about improving lives, strengthening communities, and creating solutions for people of Illinois. But before we begin our conversation, we want to address a few common myths about careers in government. Myth one: government careers are only for people who already have connections. The reality is the state of Illinois has a formal hiring process and opportunities available across many agencies and career fields. Um, Individuals from diverse professional backgrounds can apply and grow within state service. Myth two: I need government experience before I can work in government. The reality is many skills gained through education, nonprofit work, private sector careers, internships, community involvement, and leadership experiences transfer directly into state positions. Third myth: government careers are limited. The reality: the state government includes opportunities in technology, human services, civil rights, procurement, communications, administration, finance, policy, diversity, and inclusion, and many other areas. Today, our goal is that every person listening leaves with a clear understanding of community opportunities available and confidence to take the next step. Before we begin our panel discussion, we are honored to welcome Carlos Charneco. Carlos serves as the chair of the Hispanic Employment Plan Advisory Council and has dedicated his leadership to expanding opportunities and increasing representation for Latino professionals throughout state government. Carlos, thank you for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank the foundation for hosting another cast of the opportunities for state employment. I just want to send out a message that it's really important for Latinos to really consider working for the state. There's a lot of services and programs that are run by the state, and we need a Latino presence to ensure that Latino community have access to those programs and services. That means bilingual staff, that means policymakers, people dealing with the grants that are available to the community. So this is very important that Latinos get involved to serve the Latino community and all of the state of Illinois in terms of services. Just that's it, it's important. I know that the process can be a bit challenging to with the state, but once you're in and you're going to be a person who's going to have be a difference maker in the Latino community, opening doors for the community. So I'm glad that we're having this, the part two of the podcast. So I move, let's move forward with the conversation today.
Thank you, Carlos. Um, before today's webinar, we invited attendees to submit questions regarding or during registration. We've received those questions and incorporated throughout our conversation. Many people asked, how do I get started? How do I know if I qualify? What opportunities exist? How can I build a career in government? Today, we want to answer those questions directly. Carlos, since you will remain with us throughout the conversation, I would like to begin with you. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your career journey, your role as the chair of the Hispanic Employment Plan Advisory Council, and what inspired your commitment to public service?
Well, I worked for the state for 38 years. I worked with 4 different state agencies and some additional contract work with 2 additional agencies. Um, so, I went straight out of college and took a test to take unemployment claims. A friend of mine, a classmate, mentioned that they were looking for a bilingual staff person um, at the office, and I talked to the office manager. He tells me, "Oh, you got to go take a test," right? Which I did. This is in May. What's interesting is I got a call in November. It was a long lag time, but I find it interesting because when I showed up, the first thing he said to me, the manager of the office, was, "Are you Carlos?" And I said, "Yes." "When can you start?" Which really meant that I was the only person probably applying for that job. So from there, I moved on to, from frontline staff to middle management. I was actually a manager of a local unemployment office, of 2 offices, in working in other programs within the Department of Employment Security, and moved on essentially as an affirmative action officer, then moving on to CMS, Central Management Services, doing the minority employment plans for the state agencies, and eventually also working for the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, doing compliance work. So that was kind of my career path. Why I stayed, when I first started, it's like all of a sudden, and we're talking about the fall of 1980, I was the only bilingual worker in the office, and there was a throng of people coming in at that point. Latinos coming in whose language was not primarily English. I was overwhelmed by the fact that I was the only person that could take these individuals, that they, waited longer than anybody else. So that really motivated me to stay with state government because I thought there was a really big need of having access for Latinos to make sure that you have a friendly face, people who understand your culture and are sensitive to your needs. I think that's the important part of why I stayed with government. I moved up into management, and why, a lot of the state workers sometimes stay in the frontline type position, but I moved into management. I think in management, you then have the opportunity to be able to impact some changes to make it better services for Latinos. As I moved up to the affirmative action office, I created more bilingual positions in the agency. And I worked at Central Management Service. I pushed state agencies to hire more Latinos, more bilingual staff, to have more diverse management staff. So I stayed with government for one of the reasons was to make it better, make government, Illinois government, better for the Latino community. Now, my role
Thank
as
you.
the chair of the Hispanic Employment Plan Advisory Council is really to meet with state agencies, looking at their numbers, seeing where they're deficient, having conversations with them as to why they're not moving the needle on their Latino workforce, and giving suggestions, advising them, connecting them with Latino communities that can then encourage Latinos to apply for state jobs. And so that's the continuum. It's not just about frontline staff, but it also putting more Latinos at the top upper management of state agencies. So that's kind of my role at the council. So we have a lot of meetings. Um, and yeah, I do give a few agencies a hard time periodically. So as Chris will tell you.
Thank you, Carlos. Many people think of government as policies and programs, but behind every decision are people working every day to improve communities. Why is public service such a meaningful career choice? And what opportunities does the government provide that people may not realize?
Well, I think one thing you don't typically worry about government is it's a pretty stable job, number one. Number two, you can move around in government without losing seniority, and you can try different positions. And while you're working for the state, there's opportunities to go and move up in terms of your education level. They have what they call the upper mobility program. They have tuition reimbursement, and you can move from an education point of view. You can move into like from an associate's to a bachelor's to a master's. Okay, so and then you move around. I think that's the advantage of really staying in government is stability. The wages are livable wages. You feel like you're making a difference in government by serving the people of the line. So I think that's the key for a lot of people wanting to. If you want to work for government, you got to want to serve people. You want to make it better for people in the community.
Okay. A question that we received ahead of time was, I'm interested in working for the state, but I do not have state government experience. How can someone with private sector, nonprofit, educational, or community experience see themselves as qualified for a state position?
I think there's over 2,500 job titles in state government, from the blue collar jobs to white collar jobs. There are positions that don't really even require a high school education, for example, or government experience. It's your office associate, office assistant, does clerical support jobs, maintenance jobs, for example, that like the Department of Natural Resources hires site technicians who then maintain the state parks, right? So you don't need to have government experience. You would just have, it's all about the skill sets that you bring, right? Can you type? What do you know about, driving a truck, for example, for IDOT. So it varies. And, if you worked in HR, for example, in the private sector, you have the skill sets that would allow you to also work in an HR capacity. If it's accounting that you want, it's not about that you work for the government. It's the fact that you know something about accounting, whether you have a degree or you did accounting for a long period of time. So I don't think it's a big factor on the government experience. It's really about the skill sets that you bring to the state.
Okay. What other support groups exist for Latinos who seek mentorship and guidance as they consider state employment opportunities?
Well, I think one is, we have the Alumni Association of Hispanic State Employees, the members that work on helping the Latino state workers and to recruit more Latinos. We're there, the association's there to help people answer their questions, their concerns, to ensure that people are retained, that the promotional opportunities are there, show them the pathway for opportunity, basically. We do connect people with other state workers in similar positions to connect with and learn more about the job. I've had people that say, I've got an interview coming up for this job. I will connect them with a state worker or Latino that does that job, and they can tell them a little bit about what they do day to day to give them an idea of what to expect for the job. So that and, there's a lot of HR recruiters among the state agencies. So that is one thing that we do tap into. We connect people with the different HR recruiters. I can't, anybody looking for an IT job, I'm sending over to Nicole, the recruiter over there all the time. And other recruiters in the social service industry. We know who those recruiters are, and we do connect people with them and for their assistance. And people, Latinos who actually do the job, we connect with them.
Thank you, Carlos. We are now going to hear from leaders representing different state agencies and learn how individuals with different skills and backgrounds can build meaningful careers in public service. I am pleased to welcome Alice Barr Rivera Alfaro, Chief of Supplier Diversity at the Illinois Department of Innovation and Technology. Alice Barr, thank you for joining us today. To begin, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your career journey, your title, and your role as Chief Supplier of Diversity at Do It?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. So again, my name is Alisbeth Rivera Alfaro. I am the Chief of Supplier Diversity at the Department of Innovation and Technology, Do It. And I can tell you about my career path. It hasn't definitely been a straight line. I have a background in accounting, finance, and law. And I came into the state, and I want to start by saying that, Liz talked about a myth that you need to know people in order to get into the state. That was not my experience. I knew absolutely no one when I started working for the state. It was COVID. Um, I had just passed my Illinois bar exam. Um, I applied for 2 jobs at the state. I got a call for both of them. One of them, when I really saw what it was like, the second one was the one that I got. It required me to move to Springfield. So I'll also start by saying, move to Springfield. Don't be afraid of moving to Springfield for a job. In my experience, I've had the opportunity to grow fairly quickly with the state because I am a Latina, educated, living in Springfield. Um, so, if you would have asked me years ago if I thought I expected to end up in the technology world, I would have told you, what are you talking about? I am not a techie. I can get around. I can answer pretty much questions about any topic because I'm a nerd, but I am nothing related to technology. So I started the state working as attorney in procurement. From there, I was asked, my bosses knew that I had a background in accounting. The CFO left, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to take on the CFO role?" I said no 4 times. 4 times I said no. I was like, I went to law school for a reason. If I wanted to be a CFO, I wouldn't have gone to law school. So they sweetened the deal by telling me, okay, we'll make it Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council / CFO. Are you interested? And I was just like, yes, no, I'm interested. And in retrospect, taking that position definitely opened a lot of doors. Um, for starters, I was the only Latina at that agency. So I was already in a position of, making a change, even in the culture of an organization, being the only Latina, and in the way that we needed to look at, bringing opportunities for other people. But from there, I spent nearly 2 years at that agency when a person I was introduced to from the Department of Transportation told me, hey, there are 3 positions opening up in leadership. We think that, you could be great for it. Can you just be open-minded and just apply and interview? And I was just like, well, okay. They offered me one of the positions as a bureau chief of small business enterprises. Had I ever worked with small vendors and try to help them contract with the state? Absolutely not. Again, it's about the transferable skills that you bring to the state. The background that I had in accounting, the background that I had in law, and in audit, etc., opened the door for me. And I interviewed for the position, and it was amazing. I was doing compliance. My department was in charge of compliance, of helping vendors getting certified to contract with the state in construction contracts. I was overseeing a workforce development program, which was amazing. And what else? Uh, I think that was kind of like it. But with the workforce development program, that was one of my favorite aspects of the job because we had these HCCTP program that the federal government gives us money for. So we train individuals for 8 weeks to go into the construction field, and then after that, we help them get a job. So that was for me one of employment and development and helping people from the community is one of my greatest passions. So I get to do what I love, help the people in the communities, as well as conjoining all my degrees and my knowledge into the employment. And at Do It, I have the amazing opportunity to be the chief of supplier diversity, where I create education, outreach events for minority vendors to help them contract with the state, especially in the area of technology. And in my role, I definitely use everything, my accounting experience, my legal experience, everything into one. So again, do not be afraid to join the state, to apply for a role, even if you believe that you do not have all the qualifications for a position, because definitely you can transfer all your skills into another role.
Thank you. Elisbar, when people hear the Department of Innovation and Technology, many immediately think about cybersecurity or highly technical positions. However, state government depends on professionals with many different skills and areas of expertise. Can you share some of the career pathways within Do It that people may not realize exist, and explain how individuals with different backgrounds can contribute to the mission of the agency?
Absolutely. The Department of Innovation and Technology, like fairly every agency with the state, we have jobs in all the areas. Yes, we have our techies. We have, people that do cybersecurity and software development, etc. But we have an HR department. So if you want to do human resources, there's opportunities there. We have opportunities in finance, audit, compliance. We have attorney positions, we have project managers, we have contract specialists, business analysts, people who work in policy, people who work in procurement. And in the procurement arena, I'd like to say something. Again, do not be afraid to apply for procurement positions. If you are a person who likes any kind of sales, for example, the agency procurement officer has a background in accounting. So do I. The world within government is your oyster. So Do It definitely is not the exception. We have positions available in all the different areas. And again, a shameless plug to Springfield. If you apply for positions to Springfield, you have better chances at getting at least an interview. Why? Because there are less people applying. When you apply for jobs in Cook County, the competition is so much that the government typically uses this random selection, because there are many people, applying for the job, which means that perhaps you don't even get to an interview because there are so many candidates. In Springfield, especially if you want to come into the procurement world, you can start at, even if you don't have the experience, you guys can start as executive assistant too. And you can start growing from within. And like Carlos mentioned, you can, start gaining the experience and move from one agency to the next and continue growing. So you don't have to remain static in just one place. And we have an amazing and phenomenal procurement team at Do It. So I say welcome. We need more procurement individuals working here.
Okay. Your work in supplier diversity creates opportunities for businesses and entrepreneurs throughout Illinois. Can you explain how supplier diversity supports economic opportunity, strengthens communities, and help the state create a more inclusive marketplace?
Absolutely. So when you talk about diversity in procurement, we're talking about giving a small vendors the chance to have a little piece of the cake. So right now, the state of Illinois has a law that it's called the BEP Act, Business Enterprise Act. And it requires that at least 30% of the state expenditures are incurred in small businesses, which means that any large vendor or has to subcontract with minority vendors, and or minority vendors, if they have the capacity, they can submit a proposal to be the main vendor to provide that service. what happens is that once you help a minority vendor, they actually contract within the community. So everything stays within our Black and Brown communities, which is what we aim to do. It's making sure that everyone has equal access to opportunities. And what my unit is in charge of doing is not only making sure that those opportunities are being offered, but also provide education to build the capacity of these vendors in whatever areas they may need. They may need more information on, how to properly complete a proposal. We've been giving a lot of webinars this last year on the step-by-step on how to go into all the different systems that the state has to use, because it's also a very convoluted process. So we connect them with community-based organizations. We provide step-by-step process, but ultimately the goal is to help minority vendors to contract with the state, and in the same manner assist the different communities into getting jobs and resources, because once these vendors get hired, they hire within their communities and also spend the money within their communities.
Okay. The question that we received from an attendee was, many students and professionals want to work in innovation, technology, or government, but they're not always sure where they fit. How can someone identify the right career path within state government based on their skills, interests, and experiences? And what advice would you give someone trying to find where they belong?
Um, I would start by asking yourself, what is your passion? What is it that I see myself doing? Where do I want to begin? For me, it was, I knew the path was clear. I wanted to work as an attorney. So I looked for attorney positions. One thing I'll say is that when you're looking at the website for the state and you're looking at all the job titles, please click into all the positions, because the titles are really not related to what the job actually does. So go into all the different positions. So I will say, let me backtrack. Start by looking at what is it that you want to do. Let's say that you are a teacher or in education somehow. There is a new agency called IDEC. Look for that one. If you are someone in technology, wants to do project management, definitely look into do it. So depending on kind of like if you have like an area where you're like much more passionate about, start looking at that agency. You can go into the website of all the agencies and look at their mission, what they're about. Do a little research on all the different agencies and try to find out what they're about. What do they offer the community? Is that something that I see myself, going into? And after that, then start looking for all the different job posting. If you just don't care, if you just want to get into the state, just go into the website for the state. One, you can register. You can select all the different type of positions you want to receive information from. And the website automatically, once a position with, accounting, finance, law, procurement gets posted, you'll receive a notification. So absolutely do that. Two, do not set yourself short. A lot of the times when the position descriptions are created, when we create these positions, we want the moon and back. We want everything. We want the entire cake. But we also know that we are not going to get a candidate with absolutely everything that the job description portrays. So apply. If you think you have the transferable skills, if you think that you can do the job, if you can justify it because of your education, because of your experience, or because you studied and you know it, apply. If you are sure that you can do at least 65% of the job, apply for the job. And again, read all the details as far as what the requirements are for the position, because oftentimes, the title doesn't match what it's required.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Your comments highlighted an important message. There is no single definition of a government employee. State government needs professionals with many different skills, experiences, and perspectives. Our next speaker works directly with the connecting talented individuals to opportunities that serve families and communities throughout Illinois. Amelia Gavina, Deputy Chief of Recruitment and Minority Relations. Can you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your career journey, your role, and your title, Amelia?
Yes, hi. My name is Amelia Gavina, and I am I work with IDHS as the Deputy Bureau Chief of Recruitment and Minority Relations. It's a mouthful. So basically, my responsibility is to go out into the community and recruit applicants to work for the state of Illinois. Well, in particular, IDHS. And one of our major goals this year, and has been since I started about 7 years ago with the agency, is to hire more Latinos. So we are constantly brainstorming new ideas on how to connect with the community, how to educate the public on how to apply online. And things have come um, they're so much easier now to apply with the state than my experience back in the day. But let me just talk a little bit more about my background. So I joined the state of Illinois about 7 years ago, and prior to that, I worked I worked for the second largest school district in Illinois for 10 years, and then I also worked for a large healthcare system for 10 years, and always within human resources in recruitment. So my previous experience working at a school district and a healthcare system helped me secure the position at IDHS. And I think one of the major or primary skills that helped, just like Carlos, is being bilingual. So I highly recommend when you apply with the state, you highlight that you are bilingual because we are always looking for bilingual employees. So now that I'm with the state of Illinois, uh, again, my primary responsibility is to go out and educate the public and help them understand the application process, help them gain confidence in the process. Um, and there you go.
Okay, many attendees share that they are interested in state jobs, but do not know where to begin. Could you walk us through the hiring process and explain the steps someone should take when applying for their first state position?
The first thing you want to do is visit our website. There are so many resources on our website that are going to help you understand the application process step by step, help you understand what to expect, give you guidance on how to create a state resume. Also, we offer virtual recruitment presentations. And as far as the hiring process, there are a lot of steps, there are a lot of details to know that are going to help you. And one of the main um, resources I recommend is attending a virtual recruitment presentation. We offer those presentations in Spanish and English. And in that presentation, we're going to guide you through from start to finish, the application process, help you understand so you know what to expect, and also answer any questions that you may have regarding the process. But overall, definitely visit our website and take advantage of all the resources that are available.
Okay. The Illinois Department of Human Services impacts thousands of individuals and families throughout Illinois. What are some of the career opportunities available at IDHS, and how can someone with different educational backgrounds, professional experiences, or community involvement find their place within the agency?
I like to say IDHS is the largest state agency. We have over 16,300 employees, and we hire anything from a housekeeper to a doctor and everything in between. So we tend to have something for everyone. And some of the areas that people may not know or think that we hire in are obviously leadership and management. We have a large accounting and finance department, administrative. We have many administrative offices throughout the state. We have a large HR department, health care and medicine. We operate 14 hospitals, and those hospitals operate 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. We have 3 schools. We have a large legal and compliance department. We hire in all trades. That includes welders, plumbers, painters, carpenters, mechanics, and HVAC, etc. And we have a large information technology department and a business and management department as well. So with that said, there's a lot of variety. And I would say when you visit our website, just our agency has over 350 different job titles. So a lot of those titles are unique to the state where in some cases it happened to me where I read the job title and I was like, okay, I don't qualify for this or what is this? And then you read the job description and then you find out that it's actually something you do qualify or something that you might be interested in. So as mentioned earlier, definitely don't let the job titles discourage you or intimidate you. Open up the posting, read it thoroughly, and then decide if this position is for you or not.
Okay. We had a question that an attendee asked, when applying for state positions, what makes an applicant stand out? Are there specific things candidates should highlight in their resumes, applications, or interviews?
I would say a thorough, detailed application. When you're applying online, make sure you include all your background, your experience, and we give you credit for paid experience or unpaid. So that includes internships. If you were a volunteer, uh, include all that background, include all your knowledge, your skills, your abilities. At the end of the day, keep in mind, it is your responsibility to prove that you qualify for that position. And that's what you have to do when you're filling out the application. There are going to be questions that are going to help us determine if you qualify or not for that position. So when you're answering those application questions, in some cases, they may be two, three-part questions. Make sure you understand what they're asking you and that you're answering all parts of those questions with details and examples.
As someone who works directly with recruitment, what advice would you give applicants who want to increase their chances of success?
Well, for one, take advantage of all the resources. Back in the day, we didn't have all those resources to help us understand the application process. And, there was some frustration. Now everything's online. Um, so make sure you visit our website, read all the resources, take advantage. When you're applying, submit a thorough, detailed application. Don't give up. The process is lengthy. Yes, we understand it. And in some cases, going out to the community, we often hear it's impossible to get a job with the state. It is very possible. Just our agency hires close to 1,000 new employees a year. We're growing tremendously. So it is very possible. You just have to stay diligent. Um, don't take it personal. In some cases, we may not contact you, and it's not because you don't qualify or we're not interested. It could just be the volume of applications that we receive. So if you don't hear from us, it's not, again, that you don't qualify, we're not interested. It's just the volume. So stay persistent. Make sure when you apply online, there is a feature where you can create job alerts. So make sure you take advantage of those. Job alerts are your friends. Keep in mind, we only post jobs for 10 business days. So when you see something on our website, make sure you don't wait too long. You don't want to miss the application deadline. So make sure you're applying online. I would recommend visiting the website at least once a week. I know that's a lot, but I will tell you it is worth it. Once you're here working with the agency, the only regret is going to be why didn't you apply years ago? And that's what I would say is my only regret.
Thank you. Thank you for your guidance. Your guidance provides something very valuable to our audience, the confidence to understand the process and take the first step. Often people are interested in public service, but simply do not know where to begin. Conversations like this help many make those pathways much more clear. Our next speaker focuses on another essential part of government service, protecting rights, promoting fairness, and ensuring that individuals have the opportunity to thrive. I'd like to welcome our next speaker, Marlene Mendoza. Who is the Director of Legislative Affairs with the Illinois Department of Human Rights. Can you tell us about yourself, your career journey, and your title and your role?
Hi, Liz. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here with the rest of the panelists and for those that are joining us. I would say you're already doing the right thing and joining this part two of this conversation of like, how do you get to work on the state? Como dijo Liz, like Liz said, my name is Marlene Mendoza. A little bit about myself. Born and raised in Chicago. I'm from Belmont Cragen, so Northwest side. You know, I think the biggest thing for me is to share about my background and about myself is that my family directly benefited from public service benefits, like the Link Card, WIC, a lot of these programs. I'm one of 6 children, grew up from immigrant parents, single mother. So to me, it was very much, being with my mom early on, going to DHS, going to a lot of these places, helping her to translate, right? And helping her to understand and navigate this process when I was really like 8, 9 years old. So I remember, my mom telling me early on, you always have to give back what people give you. We're born to provide service and help others. That's really what we're here for. It's learn from other people, bring everyone together. And so I think that that's not just something that, my mom had as a person that is very religious, but I think it's something that comes from our community. I think the World Cup showed the world stage that, Latinos tend to be very much of like caretakers, wanting to welcome people in, accepting who you are, and trying to figure out how can we all help each other in what we're experiencing. So because that is my background, that's the best way I can summarize who I am. It was easy to understand my why into why do I want to be a public servant. I'm grounded in the fact that I know what helped to clothe me, feed me, inspire me, and build me up. And to me, that was community. So I want to be able to give that back to others that need it now, and seeing myself in that. So that is a little bit about myself and why it is that if you look at my career, I'm 32 years old, right? So if you look at my past career journey, it has all been in public service. I will say that the last 9 years, I have been working in nonprofits. So I was working in a lot of policy organizations, direct service type of organizations. I had a small stint where I worked for myself as a consultant. Whole different conversation. But that's another area where a lot of Latinos are going into starting their own consulting businesses, employing themselves. And then I came back to the nonprofit world. And then I just wrapped up. I'm like a year and almost and a half of working for the state. So this is very much a new experience for me. But I'm very happy that I'm here now after 10 years of working more on the advocacy on the ground side. Now I'm kind of more on the policy, kind of the state bureaucracy side of understanding how does the state work? What is the process to work with the state? Which is helping me to inform what I know from the perspective of the hat of being an advocate, of being more on the ground and organizing people to then help push the state to do something, right? So it's very complementary. And I will ask and encourage people that you want to expand your perspective of the work in policy and advocacy. If this is something that you want to come in, it's good to expand your horizon of what is it like to do it on the side of direct service, more on community side. What does it look like to then be a part of the state and providing that service, right? um, so my role with the Department of Human Rights, so I'm their Director of Legislative Affairs. So what does that mean? That means that every year we have to pass a budget, okay? And the budget, all of this goes down January through May in Springfield, Illinois. And so what happens is that, you have advocates, you have lobbyists, you have people like myself who go down there as soon as session starts in January, and you are filing bills. You are filing bills and legislative ideas and proposals, and you have all of these months to make sure that you're moving those bills from one chamber out of the other, from the House over to the Senate, negotiating your whole time in between your negotiating of like, okay, what do you want? What do you want? What's your interest? Can we find a middle ground? Can we try to figure out how we can then move forward and pass this legislation? So that happens every year. And so my job as a Director of Legislative Affairs is I am herding sheep. So what I'm doing is, from the summer, so summer through the end of the year, so June through December, I am organizing and strategizing my executive team at the Department of Human Rights, which is a smaller agency. We have about 116 employees, so very much smaller compared, for example, to my colega at DHS, right? And so I do a lot of strategy. I help them understand, is there new ideas that we want to pass to strengthen the Illinois Human Rights Act, right? So a lot of agencies may be under specific acts of state statute that you have to follow, and this is policies that you have to follow. For the IDHR, we really operate under one act, which is the Illinois Human Rights Act. So we are we're either thinking of two things. We're thinking, is there ways to strengthen the Illinois Human Rights Act? And does that require legislative proposals for then me to go down and try to pass and run in Springfield? Is there ways that we can think ahead of ways that people want to lessen people's rights, and we want to be a little bit proactive and look for things? And that's the other half of my job, which is the fun part, is you kill bills that you're like, this is not a good bill. So I'm going to go out there and try to tell legislators, do not vote for this. This is why you shouldn't vote for this. This is why it's lessening or protecting people's rights. So then you have the other fun side of killing bills as well, right? Not just passing them. But that is really what I do. I'm in the business of personal relations, right? A lot of us tend to be, right? So I'm going down to Springfield to speak to legislators, House of Representatives or senators, and letting them know, hey, the Department of Human Rights wants to pass these bills. Here's why. And so you're talking to them, you're explaining to them. I'm always with a lawyer. And the good thing about there is a legislative liaison, which is kind of like my role, like a director of legislative affairs in every agency, right? And some agencies, the bigger that they are, the more of a team that they have. So for my agency, because it's a smaller agency, it's just myself. I'm a team of one, right? But I don't work alone. I work with my, my executive team that helps to inform the legislation. So oftentimes you're working with a lot of lawyers, your director, your deputy director, to make collective decisions. My colleagues at IDHS, for example, they have a legislative team that is 5, 6, 7 people, right? Because they just have to deal with a lot more legislation that they have to vet and track and figure out, who wants to make changes to anything about policies or legislation with, for example, DHS, right? So we all work differently, but we all do the same thing of going down to Springfield, January through May, to make sure that our bills get passed. So that is really what the role is. It is a kind of a crazy job, but it teaches you a lot. I recommend people that if you are trying to really understand how the sausage is made, you have to go down to Springfield. And it doesn't mean necessarily working in my role, but like if you, for example, are working for a policy organization or any nonprofit in Illinois that has or receives money from the state, you have every right to go to Springfield and advocate for continuing funding of that program. Why? Because you are benefiting from that. You want to show legislators, hey, this is why it's helpful. This is why you should keep funding these programs, et cetera, et cetera. So you start to realize that, there's a whole process to legislative making, but everyone has a role, everyone has a way to apply pressure, and that sí vale la pena to make sure that your voice is heard. So that, in short, is what I do in my role at the Department of Human Rights.
I must say that my ears perked up a little bit because it's very interesting, right? Like I like to argue a point and I like to negotiate it. I think anyone that's a mother would be perfect because you learn how to negotiate with your children and the families, right? It's a very good skill. So it's very interesting. I'm learning a lot from all of you. So, next question for you, Marlene. The Illinois Department of Human Rights plays a critical role in protecting families and equity through Illinois. Can you share the mission of IDHR and explain how the agency's work impacts the everyday lives of Illinois residents?
Yes, absolutely. So the mission of Illinois Department of Human Rights is very short and sweet and to the point. So it is to secure freedom and to secure freedom from unlawful discrimination for all Illinoisans residents and to establish equal opportunity as state policy, right? I will say that of all across the nation, other states, not all of them have an agency dedicated to the Department of Human Rights. I think it's very important to understand that. So other states can have like a smaller commission. They can have, a different way that they have something that kind of is their civil rights framework. It could live under the Office of Attorney General, for example. Illinois is very different and it's an outlier because we have a whole dedicated agency to doing a couple of things. So to answer Liz's question, right? So how do we, how do we impact the everyday lives of Illinoisans? Well, we are an investigative body. Okay, so what we do, the Department of Human Rights, is if a person in their waking life experiences discrimination in areas of employment, which is our Article 2, housing, Article 3, financial credit, Article 4, or public accommodation, which is Article 5, if you experience any type of discrimination under these areas, you can come forward to the Illinois Department of Human Rights and say, I would like to file a charge saying that, hey, this is what happened to me. You have from 1 year from the date that you experience it to come to the agency and say, I want to file a charge of discrimination, what ends up happening after you file that charge is that we are allowed and required by state statute to do a formal investigation to say, is there jurisdiction here? Jurisdiction meaning, is there enough of what happened to this person to then say we can move forward to really investigating and figuring out how do we go through the process to say what if there was discrimination found or not. It's important because this is a resource that is free. You do not need to have money to go through our process. And most of the people that come to the department are pro se, which means you are not here with someone representing you legally. So you don't have no legal representation. Why that's important to continue to fund and provide resources to, and why we need to hire more bilingual case investigators at the Department of Human Rights is because when people are coming forth with a charge, we get so many calls, emails from people saying, this happened to me. Is this something under the act that you all can say that is discriminatory so I can start a charge? And so we connect them to lawyers that explain to them, here are your protections under the act. If you experience this and that, and you're alleging that, it's enough for us that we recommend that you start an investigation with us, right? So a lot of people don't realize that you have this resource as a state. State money is being funded through our agency so we can carry out this investigation. To the investigation process, it does take a while. I'm not going to sit here and say you're going to find out in a month, right? It takes a while. Why? Because since the first Trump presidency, we've seen an increase in charges filed with the department, meaning more people are experiencing hate and discrimination. And so the charges have significantly gone up. And so we're trying to figure out how to take on all this case management, but still try to do an efficient job to get back to people. So it does take about, it can range. It depends on the case, but it can take anywhere between 8 to 11 months to a year to almost 2 years, right? It all really depends on the case, the depth of it, and what happened. So that is a big chunk of what we do. We investigate discrimination charges. The other thing that we do is we provide a lot of training, free training to the public around, maybe you don't know how to work with different generations in the workforce. Maybe you need a sexual harassment training. Maybe you need a training on racial bias. Whatever all of these trainings fall into, we have a public training institute, and you can sign up, reach out to us. We can set up a training. We go either virtually or in person, and we go ahead and inform people of like, here's proper training, here's your rights, here are posters that we're required to have up as employers or in housing rights, et cetera, et cetera. So that is how we impact the everyday life of Illinoisans across the state.
Okay. Many professionals today are searching for careers where their work has purpose and where they can create meaningful change. How does working for IDHR allow employees to contribute to equity, justice, and improving communities throughout Illinois?
That's a really good question, and I was trying to think of what is a real example of this, and honestly, because we are an investigative body, it really comes down to day-to-day interactions. So if you like in my role, I'm constantly dealing with working with elected officials, and that requires the knowing how to maintain relationships, having good relationships, not burning any bridges. But the same goes to my colleagues who are working on the front lines of the agency and are picking up calls from people or are doing the investigations and have to reach out to the person who filed the charge and then the respondent, or just the person that is being said that committed the crime or committed, the discrimination. So you have to know how to listen, and a lot of times people feel that no one cares, that no one's listening to them. Who's going to really help me in this? And as public servants, especially at IDHR, you have to be able to listen to understand. These people are coming oftentimes not speaking English. They can speak a variety of different languages. And so we have to, make sure that we're connecting them to a proper interpreter, or if we have someone who speaks English and Spanish, can take on that case and really make the person feel comfortable. They're already scared to come to the state because they don't know if they're really going to help me. What is this process going to look like? Can I even get the service? So they're already coming in nervous. So every day, we can provide a good customer service of saying, we're here for you, we care for you, we want to make sure you fill out this form. Here's the whole process. Let's explain it to you so that they understand, what is the next process in this case of the investigation. So literally every interaction matters, because it could be the difference between them saying I'm going to go through with this process, right, and have my voice heard, or say, you know what, I don't feel like I'm getting the proper treatment here, I'm just going to walk away. And we never know if there was a finding there, if they can get some money in mediation or settlement because they actually were being discriminated against. So I would say it really comes down to the day-to-day interactions that we have at DHR.
Okay. We had a question submitted. For students and young professionals interested in public policy, advocacy, government relations, communications, or community engagement, what skills or experience should they begin developing now to prepare for a career in these areas?
That is a great question. And I would say that you don't necessarily have to, like, let's say that you were studying environmental science. I'm just throwing an example out there, right? And you graduated with that and you know everything about this subject, right? Or let's say it's in nursing or in healthcare. You do not have to up and change your whole career trajectory because you decide, you know what, I really like policy. In every area of study, there is policy. In every area of study or trade or profession, someone is going down to Springfield to introduce legislation on that topic. So what I'm saying is you can figure out what is the policy side of the field that I'm currently involved in and how can I help inform that policy side if you want to stay in that field. If you were to then say, you know what, no, I want to completely switch over to policy and advocacy and maybe start in a different area, maybe you're looking at data trends on a specific broader topic, then for those people, what I would say is if you know how to listen, if you know how to be able to hear what people are telling you, condense it, summarize it, and say it back in layman terms, if you know how to write well and you have people skills, you can literally get any job. And what I mean by that is because we are in the business of personal relations. If you are in any public policy or advocacy job, it requires knowing who are the players in the field, who is leading on this, right? On the data side or on the writing side, who then is actually doing the groundwork on the public policy side or the advocacy side of working with the community. And what you have to do is you have to know how to have relationships with all these players in the public policy wheel that we call, right? The life of public policy. And you have to know how to check in with people, say, hey, what are you working on? What are you doing? Let's stay in touch. And so all of these types of transferable skill sets is what allows you to thrive in public policy and advocacy, right? And I'll say them again. Knowing how to talk to people, basic networking skills, knowing how to speak well, knowing how to write well in the sense of like, don't write like write what is actually necessary and to the point of like summarizing what it is that you're experiencing. Don't not putting in necessarily your own opinions, looking at the data to inform what it is that you're writing. These are all basic skills that are required for this area and will allow you to really do well without necessarily feeling that you have to go completely out of your way. I work with lawyers all the time. I thought I wanted to go to law school and I only have my undergrad, so I don't have a master's. And I've been working in this field for 10 years collectively. Me working in Springfield and doing a lot of this advocacy, working directly with people, really gave me my master's degree, I guess you could say. I am now going to pursue part-time graduate school now that I know for a fact that this is what I want to pursue as a master's, because I like to take my time. That's another thing I would say, take your time working in the field because you may discover that maybe it's public policy, but it's more public administration, right? And that's a little bit different. Or maybe it's policy, but it's actually in law. Like you want to be able to help write laws and help write some of those bills, right? So get enough exposure in different areas of policy, whether it's the state and the community, maybe you're interning in a law firm, et cetera, so that like, okay, this is kind of where I want to fall. So that's what I would say.
Well, hearing you talk and how the skill set, I'm thinking at the top of my head, I was in higher ed for over 16 years as an academic advisor. And people in higher ed that are in positions, you have to learn how to listen to the student, to hear what they're saying, summarize that. You have to be in touch with faculty, staff, and other departments. So anyone that's in higher ed listening right now, if you work in higher ed, that's a transferable skill that you can bring in because you have to know how to talk to all the constituents of all the parties in different departments in higher ed institutions and students, right? You have to be empathetic and figure out how to troubleshoot and help. So, and then graduate students, research skills, right? So I'm thinking of like, I hear a lot of you all talking, and I'm thinking the similarities of higher ed, right? So this is really wonderful. Thank you, Marlene. Your comments remind us that public service is ultimately about people, protecting rights, creating opportunities, and ensuring that every community has a voice. Today's conversation has shown us that government careers are diverse and there are many ways to contribute. We will now continue with leaders who focus on creating workforce where employees feel supported, represented, and empowered to grow. I am pleased to welcome Chris Naranjo, Statewide Manager for Latinx Diversity and Inclusion at Illinois Department of Central Management Services. Chris, thank you again for joining us again today in part 2. To begin, can you please tell us about yourself, your career journey, your title, and about your role as a statewide manager for Latinx diversity and inclusion at CMS?
Sure, that is a loaded question, Liz. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm a Northwest Sider as well, similar to Marlene. Belmont Cragen is old stomping grounds for me. Born and raised in Hermosa, Logan, Avondale, and Old Irving. So really deep ties to Chicago. My dad's Colombian, my mom's Mexican. My dad is a social worker that now has his PhD, so he's got his doctorate in that. And my mom was a CNA for a lot of the upbringing I had, and a medical secretary back then. So what brought me to the state? It was a long, winding road, but my undergrad degree is in public health. Thought about going to medical school and did not. But in the process, realized I could go back to school. I got my MBA in finance. And in doing so, started working in finance. I worked for a few banks, worked for Dyson, the old vacuum and hair dryer company as well. So the hand dryers that you see in the bathroom sometimes, as I came back to Chicago. And in the process, realized I did not enjoy making money for other people. My idea of good work is always trying to give back to your community. It might be my dad sort of seeping into my head a little bit with the social work background. And thinking of what I wanted to do next, I was trying to make my way into public health, but also focusing more in what can I do to give back to the community. So in that process, started reaching out to friends and whatnot, and started working for City Colleges of Chicago. This was almost 8 years ago now, I think, or it was 8 years ago, which is crazy to say out loud. But in that process was working with students to help them with their scholarships and help them manage the money of the foundation at the City Colleges of Chicago Foundation. And then from there, moved on to Hope Chicago. And doing that, it was incredible because it was really, really helpful to me to understand. Hope Chicago is a two-generation model where we focus on taking not just the student, but also their parent back to college or university to make sure that they could get their degree. And it was really, really exciting. And that is the last job I had before I came to the state. I applied, I think it was almost 2 years ago now. So November of 2024, got the job. It took a little while. That's one thing that I will say is the state can take quite a bit of time, somewhere between 4 to 6 months for getting out the roles. And when I went back to my boss at Hope, I was letting them know, hey, I found this incredible role. They're looking at the statewide manager for Latinx diversity and inclusion. It's really what I want to be doing. I want to be pivoting away from finance and moving towards these sorts of things. He was really, really supportive. I didn't know anybody at the state, so I reached out to a few friends. I had a few that worked at different departments, and it was incredible to really jump in with 2 feet and bring in a breath of fresh air. But also, part of the reason I got hired was because I had so many connections at the local community colleges, as well as the state schools all across the state. I visited quite a few of them while I was working for Hope. And that was a really enlightening moment for me, just being able to build that network, those relationships, and those ideas. The state is looking for that. And it's something to keep in mind when you are applying, that you are more than just the sum of your parts. So when you're applying, the first thing that I recommend to everybody is a one-page resume will never do it for you at the state. The state is trying to be as equitable as possible. So making sure that your resume is as lengthy as possible, include anything and everything that you've got in there to be super clear, and make sure that you realize what the state has to offer you as well. For me, first and foremost, it's incredible flexibility. I work 37 and a half hours a week. Anytime that I go over that, when I'm doing outreach events or doing like that, I get it back as time off. So I am expecting a little one with my wife in a few months. I'll be taking my 12 weeks of paternity leave. I'm very excited to be doing that. But then on top of that, I've got a ton of time off that I'll be taking off as well. So looking forward to all of those things and making sure that it's super clear. Being a state employee, you've also got a ton of things at your disposal, like the upward mobility program where you can go back to school. They'll pay for some of your credits. thinking of you have to stay for 10 years. It doesn't have to be all continuous. So you can leave and come back. And it's also reciprocal with other colleges and universities, police and firemen, city and county governments. But you have, after 10 years, a pension. It's something to also make sure to remember. It's something that a lot of people have forgotten about. But pensions still exist, and the state of Illinois is not going out of business. It's something I love to tell young folks when they're applying. It's incredible benefits. It's worth the travel between here and Springfield. It's worth everything that you're going to do. And honestly, I go home and I don't take home with me. I'll be thinking about it periodically, like in my mind, but I go home and I leave work at work, and I go home and I get to enjoy my wife and our little one that we're expecting. So making sure that we're thinking of those things, it's really an incredible opportunity. Liz, did I answer your question fully? I don't know if I did or not.
Yeah, no. And I'm hearing the common thread, right? You were in Hope Chicago, which worked with higher ed institutions and community colleges, right? So
Yeah,
again, anyone that's in higher ed, listen, because I know you have to learn how to develop relationships, right? That's key.
yeah,
So, you know, I might even think of applying for a job maybe someday in the future with the state, right? Because I know a lot of people. So
absolutely.
this is good information. So Chris, why is representation important, and how does having employees who reflect their communities in Illinois that they serve strengthen the work of government?
Oh, excellent. So this is where I get to get on my soapbox and talk about my role here at the state. I work with Carlos on the Employment Plan Advisory Council. I help manage it. Carlos is my chair, so that's why he was joking about me being able to fill in a bit more about us getting on the agencies and everything that's going on across the state. First thing I want to let people know is the state has a ton of positions available. We're expecting a huge slew of folks to be retiring in the next 5 to 10 years. So there's going to be a ton of positions available. That turnover and that churn is going to be really, really big for us. But the biggest thing that I can share is the state is improving because it wasn't always doing its best at letting people know that we exist, first and foremost. Back in the day, you had to fill out the CMS 100, which was a paper form that you had to take a test for, come into one of the testing centers and do that. Our application process is entirely online now. It still takes us a little bit to get back to folks, but 10% of our applicants are Latino and Hispanic. That's crazy. The state of Illinois is 20% Hispanic or Latino identifying. And that's for those that we account for in the census, right? We might have a handful more that we're not counting for. So I'd say that number is even higher personally. But we're 20% of the state population and we're only 10% of the applicants for the jobs at the state of Illinois. That's absolute ludicrousness to me. Like it's just crazy that we don't have more applicants, first and foremost. Then on top of that, we represent 7.7% of the state workforce. So we are still, that 13 to 12% gap is what I'm trying to close. That's part of my job, which is huge. And on top of that, there are 57,000 state employees across the entire state. There's a ton of roles available, and it's really, really helpful. A lot of our roles are union. That's 95% of our state roles. But the reason that it matters is because we need more seasoning in the state. Like, let's be honest about what we're missing. There's a culture of vibrance, of connectivity, and lots of other things. And I'm not saying this is strictly for Latinos and Hispanics, but what I'm saying in general is the state needs to represent its constituency. It needs to represent its residents. It needs to represent anybody that is really considered voiceless in this case. So everyone is welcome to come in and apply to the state of Illinois. We've got a ton of resources that are entirely free to folks. Career counseling is one of the biggest. So if you go to careers.illinois.gov, it'll take you to that website, but you can look at career counseling and you can set up a meeting where you can either chat with somebody on the phone or you can do it on camera like we're doing today. And they'll help you through your resume, help you look at positions that may be worth your while, depending on what your resume has, and also how to expand on it. You may get me every once in a while. I actually met with a young man earlier this week on Monday that I was helping because a friend reached out and was like, hey, my son is looking for a job. Would you mind chatting with him? And I'm absolutely happy to do it. But when you're applying, the other thing to know is those minimum qualifications are the very, very minimum that you need in order to be considered for those positions. So when you read those positions, make sure that you're looking at the minimum qualifications. If you do not meet that, you're not going to get an interview. So just want to make that super clear to folks. And to take a step back of why the representation matters, all Illinoisans should be represented in state government, no matter what. And that's the driving force that I have and the mantra that I have as far as the model that's over my desk. That includes language access. So if you don't speak the language, we should have employees that speak the language that you speak. So at least you have that sort of cultural element. But also it helps because we're all in this together, right? We're all part of Illinois. We love this state or the cities in it for a reason. Our families are here. We're from here. That's the whole point. We're here to make sure to serve you. When we look at our org charts at the state of Illinois, the very, very top says the people of Illinois are our boss. After that, it's Governor Pritzker, and then it's us. But at the very, very top, it's always going to be the residents and the people of Illinois. So it's whether you come here for work or whether you live here.
Thank you. Many individuals today are looking for more than just a job. They're looking for a workplace where they can grow, develop leadership skills, and build meaningful career. What opportunities exist within state government for mentorship, professional development, and long-term career advancement?
There's quite a few different things. So first, I would mention the Upward Mobility Program. I have mentioned that before. That's available to all union employees, which is huge in helping them pay for school when they want to go back and get their degrees. Also, training in general, that's really helpful. Marlene mentioned the Illinois Department of Human Rights having their trainings. There's a ton of trainings that are really, really helpful. And it's focused on your own professional development. So how to manage employees, how to manage difficult conversations with employees, things of that nature. I've taken them myself. They're really, really enlightening and they're excellent as far as taking advantage of that. There's also IASE, which is huge. Carlos mentioned it earlier, but it is the Illinois Association of Hispanic State Employees. Diane Casas is on this call right now. She's our current president for IASE, and she's a major proponent for making sure that we address how do we help with professional development. The IASE conference is coming up on October 2nd. It's a Friday. There's going to be a job fair component to it, but then you'll also get to learn about SERS, so retirement. You'll get to learn about the policies that we have in place. And on top of that, there's just a lot of partnership building. I mean, when we walk into the room, we greet each other, we say hello. I have found a handful of people that I have now considered mentors while in my time here. I've been at the state for a year and 3 months and have been able to lean on several folks and make sure that it is clear what we're trying to do, and that is improve the state of Illinois for the better for all of us. But when I think of these things, I think of my parents, I think of my siblings, I think of now my kid, which is crazy to say out loud, but this is what I'm really considering. I want to leave it better than I found it and make sure that we are addressing all of the needs that we have across the state of Illinois.
You know, you just touched on something, and I'm only talking about what I know. So in higher ed, anyone who works for Illinois Public University or community college, we have the SERS State University Retirement System. So if you're looking to transition to state government, is it a lateral move? Does your SERS then transfer over to that SERS?
It does. So sorry, I need to be clear because there's actually two SERS. So there's SURS, which is the State University Retirement System,
Right, that's
which
the
is
one
the
we
one you're
have, right?
discussing. And then on this side, at the state employee side, it's SERS. So it's a little bit confusing for folks. But yes, I am a former state university employee working for City Colleges of Chicago. So that means I had 3 years under SERS, SURS. And now that I'm at the state of Illinois, that means I now have 4.5 years total towards my pension for the state of Illinois because there's reciprocity between the two. So you're not losing anything. And it's actually easier for you as a state university system employee because with there, you only have to do 5 years to get your pension. Here on this side, or to be vested on this side of the house, being a state employee, it's 10 years. So there's a lot of reciprocity there. Same goes for police, firemen, city and county officials typically, and it all applies for retirement, a lot of that reciprocity. So you're not losing anything in that process either.
So this is good to know, right? It's understanding and educating yourself because you don't know what you don't know.
Of course.
A question that we received from an attendee was, some people may feel intimidated applying for government positions because they do not see people with their backgrounds like theirs in leadership roles. What advice would you give someone who wants to enter government but is unsure if they belong?
First and foremost, you do belong. And let me be the first person to tell you that if you don't believe it yourself. Second, the minimum qualifications are the thing to keep in mind. So like I mentioned earlier, you have to meet those minimum qualifications to get those roles. But I have a really odd background. I've got an undergrad degree in public health, and then I've got an MBA in finance. My thought was, I want to run a hospital one day. I'm considering DHS after the conversation that Amelia provided us, but Alicia is also giving us a really good understanding of what procurement can do or what do it can do. So think about where you fit in and don't focus on agencies necessarily. Look at all the roles that we have available because the state of Illinois does anything and everything you can think of. The only thing that I know that the state doesn't do is embalm people, but we have do everything else in between because we're trying to take care of folks that are here at the state. So first and foremost, look at what you can do, what skills you've got, and then also look at how can you build on those skills, right? What are those transferable skills that we've all talked about? Are you great with customer service? Are you great with outreach? Are you great with um, dictation and note taking and whatnot? Are you capable of so much more than what you're thinking? Don't limit yourself. And then the other thing is, I would suggest to all candidates that want to apply to the state of Illinois, apply to any and every job that interests you, first and foremost, as long as you meet those minimum qualifications. The reason being is that the state of Illinois does not frown upon you applying to multiple jobs. If you apply to 100 jobs, it does not bother us by any means. We want to see you apply. And it's very, very diverse across the state. We have 102 counties. Chicago is obviously the largest city, but if you think about the collar counties and other places where we need folks all over the place. Springfield is a great place to work and live because you get to make a state salary and live in Springfield, which means you can buy a great house. You don't have to live in the state of Illinois to work for the state of Illinois. You just have to make it to the office when you're required to. So those are the things to keep in mind, and really want to make sure that folks are thinking a little bit differently. We have so many cities and so many towns that can use more Latinos and Hispanics. I mean, Joliet, Rockford, Quincy, Marion, Effingham, Collinsville, Carbondale, all of these places have roles and roles where we need bilingual speakers. All of these places have roles that are available to us, and it's easier to land because you're not competing nearly as much as you are in Cook County. There's a lot of talented folks that can apply here. So it just depends on if you're willing to make the move. There's plenty of places to go and look. So I'm always chasing after college students in college towns, trying to convince them that the state of Illinois is a great place to work to start.
Thank you, Chris. Your message about belonging is extremely important. A successful workforce is one where individuals can bring their experiences, talents, and perspectives to the table and see opportunities to grow. Now let's navigate. Well, thank you for sharing some also the employee benefits and opportunities and resources that are available to people applying for the state. I like one final question for each of the panelists here. What is one piece of advice that you would give to someone watching today who is considered applying for the state position? Let's keep it a brief little nugget of advice.
I would say, stay persistent, continue to apply, don't give up. And I always say, applying with the state is like playing the lottery. You're not going to win if you don't play. So continue. A couple things I wanted to mention earlier, and this question comes up often. You do not have to be a U.S. citizen to work for the state of Illinois. As long as you hold valid work authorization, you can apply. So that's what I would say. And if you have any questions, don't be shy, reach out. If you contact us, we will respond within 24 hours. I did include our email address in the chat. So if anything comes up later today or in the future, definitely don't hold back, reach out. Help is available.
I would say, I'm not mute or what? Okay. I would say that keep an open mind for the jobs beyond your location preferences. As we've mentioned in this panel, there's a higher concentration of the applicant pool within the northern part of Illinois, especially Cook County. So we always tell folks to consider the fact that half the jobs are in northern Illinois, and the other half are in Springfield, south of I-80, basically. We would encourage people to look at moving beyond their preference locations. Number one, as Amelia pointed out, you have to be really patient with the process because it's not, the average number of days from the time a posting closes to the time they onboard somebody, an average is about 90 to 100 days. It's longer for the bigger agencies because they have a lot more postings. The turnaround for smaller agencies is a little less, such as a Human Rights, which employs about 150 people. So their turnaround's a little better. So I think that's important. And as we mentioned before, titles can be deceiving with the state. You got to look at the skill sets. Do you have the skill sets? All about skill sets. We also encourage people, if the job has any reference to um, the skill sets as relates to any educational courses you took, it actually to your advantage to upload your transcripts. We find that some people were getting, uh, they weren't getting called, but then they started uploading their transcripts, and that increased their chance. Now they were getting calls for interviews. So I think that's important, not to be discouraged about the process. It's important that we have Latinos in government. We're way behind where we should be. I think this is important. I think, like you say, we need them frontline, middle management, upper management.
Anyone else want to give a reflection?
I would say that careers do not follow a straight line. So every experience teaches you something. There are transferable skills. Use them. Your degree opens the door, but you are the one who defines your destination. Read beyond the job title and apply to other jobs that are not in Chicago. And I know I've said this 20 million times, but by experience, I can tell you that if I wouldn't have come to work in Springfield, I wouldn't have grown as quickly as I did. So keep your mind open.
I'll share a quick piece of advice. I'm going to manifest that people on this call will get an interview. So once you do get an interview from the state, I cannot emphasize this enough. Answer the questions as they are being given to you. So that is the best way I can describe what I'm trying to say. Make sure that you answer the questions, each part of the question. So if the question is telling you, please tell us of a time and date and how long you were in that role for X, Y, and Z, literally answer every part of that question. Like, I cannot stress that enough. I can say that I finally had the privilege of being a panelist to hire someone in the state at DHR. And when I finally went through that process, I was like, oh my gosh, if I ever come across anybody who actually gets an interview, that is the biggest piece of advice that I will tell you. Don't go out of your way to, talk in circles. Literally answer the questions como te lo están dando. Like, it is almost kind of robotic. I don't know why the process is the way it is what it is, but make sure that you're answering each question as they're giving them to you, and don't assume that they know anything. So if they're going to ask you a question like, tell us all the skills that you have for computer skills, you pretend that they don't know what Zoom is, Google Calendar, Outlook. You mention every little possible thing under that question, because the way that they score them is they can only score you based on what you're telling them in the interview. Okay. So that is what I will share.
Chris, do you want to give a final reflection?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll add to that. Please take advantage of career counseling. Career counseling will help you with all of the things that have been mentioned. They'll look at your resume. They'll help you look for postings and positions that may work for you. They'll also make sure that you are prepared for that interview. I think part of what Marlene was talking about is the fact that what we do at the state is called a RUTAN interview, which is RUTAN, if you're ever interested in looking it up. And the reason is because it's supposed to be an equitable process. The same applies for your resume. Your resume, the longest one I've ever seen is 18 pages. The longest one I've heard of ever being submitted to the state is 24. That's the level of depth, and like that's what we want to see and what to make sure that you are applying with when you are doing that. But then when they interview you, they act like they've never seen your resume before. So be aware of that as well. So take advantage of career services. It's entirely free to anybody that's applying to a job at the state of Illinois, and it's incredibly helpful to make sure that folks take advantage of it. So please make sure to do it because it's free to you, and we are happy to have way more applicants than we've ever had before.
Thank you. As we're getting close to our ending time, I'd like to share some things with you all. Before everyone leaves today, we want to encourage you to choose one action you will take after this conversation. It could be exploring state job opportunities, updating your resume, connecting with a mentor or professional in your field, learning more about state agencies, applying for a position that aligns with your interest, sharing this information with someone who may benefit from it. Sometimes the difference between an opportunity and a missed opportunity is simply taking the first step. We hope that today's conversation gave you the information and confidence to step away. I'd like to take the time to thank these wonderful panelists for taking time out of their day to share this wonderful information with us and sharing their stories. Your leadership, your commitment to helping the next generation of public servants understand the opportunities available throughout Illinois government. Today's conversation showed us that there is no single pathway into public service. People enter government from different backgrounds, industries, and expertise. What connects them is the commitment to serving others and creating positive change. To everyone who joined us today, we hope you leave with three important messages. First, there is a place for you in public service. Second, your skills, experience, and perspectives matter. Third, your next opportunity may begin with one decision to explore, apply, and take action. Illinois needs talented individuals who are ready to serve, lead, and bring new ideas forward. Thank you for joining us for this Cafecito Careers in Government Part 2. Please stay connected to the Illinois Legislative Latino Caucus Foundation Alumni Association. Our upcoming Cafecito, August 21st, Friday, it'll be From Little Village to the Moon with Dr. Gonzalez, who is part of the Artemis Project, a professor at UIUC. We hope that today's conversation inspired you to explore more opportunities, connect with resources, and consider many ways you can contribute through public spaces. Also, Do It is having a webinar at 2 p.m. The information today is in the chat. So if you're able to get it and if you're able to join, please keep informed. Reach out to them. They gave you their information in the chat. And please stay connected. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you.